And the fudge was delicious. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm Lindsay Tuckman. Let's head over to Veronica De La Cruz. Veronica, you need to get yourself some fudge and to celebrate Mother's Day this weekend. I'm wishing you a very happy Mother's Day.
Thinking exactly that, Lindsay, and a very happy Mother's Day to all the mothers in your life as well. Lindsay, thanks so much. All right, we are following lots of news right now, several developing stories for you at this hour, including an arrest in the death of a New York City subway performer.
Daniel Penny surrendered at the 5th precinct. He did so voluntarily.
The man at the center of the heated debate over Jordan Neely's death has turned himself in to police.
If he didn't have the intention of killing Jordan Neely, I believe that at the least he did not have consideration for his life because he was poor, homeless, and black.
Do not believe the lies of smugglers.
The surge of migrants at the southern border are sparking a flurry of legal filings. We'll take a closer look at the turmoil in the wake of Title 42. Plus, startling video showing how bad the situation in Bakhmut has gotten for the Russian military as a soldier surrenders to a drone. And a warning for Hollywood writers on strike. Why experts are warning the jobs that they've walked out on could be eliminated by AI. Scripps News Live begins right now.
Well, it has been 12 hours now since the end of Title 42. And though there was no immediate surge at the southern border when the clock struck midnight, there was a rush to the courts. Hello, too. Thank you so much for joining us on this Friday. This is your Friday edition of Scripps News Live. I'm Veronica De La Cruz. So overnight, the ACLU filed suit to block the Biden administration's new restrictions on migration, arguing it violates U.S. and international law. The new policy requiring most people to seek asylum in the U.S. via Mexico and Central America to first apply for asylum in a country that they have traveled through to reach the southern border. Separately, a federal judge ruling that the Border Patrol can't release migrants who've been in its custody without first giving them a date to appear in immigration court. Right now, more than 27,000 migrants are in federal custody, and this lawsuit alleges some have been released without court dates. This ruling could slow down the detention process. The Border Patrol says it will comply with the court order and is assessing next steps. Last night, House Republicans took action on immigration as well. They narrowly passed a bill that would bring back the Trump-era Remain in Mexico policy, and would fund the completion of the unfinished border wall and would require companies to verify the visa status of its workers. This bill stands little chance of clearing the Senate, but if it does, President Biden is promising to veto it. Let's begin our team coverage at this hour with national correspondent Addie Guajardo, who is at the border crossing for us in El Paso, Texas. So Addie, you've been showing us some of the worry and the confusion for the many who've made the sometimes harrowing journey to seek asylum. What is it like there right now that Title 42 has come to an end?
Well, Veronica, it's been pretty quiet out here in El Paso. They've been bracing for an influx of migrants, but so far not a whole lot happening out here. And look, behind me is an alley. Most people don't like to walk down one or even drive down one, but migrants slept back here last night. Many of them telling me that they felt safer in this alley than they did back home, where they say some feared for their lives given the situations that they were put in. Migrants that I spoke with say while they didn't fully comprehend Title 42, what that meant for them, they knew they had to line up along the border or get on that CBP One app and try to seek asylum before that title came to a final end. I spoke to 3 migrants who ended up crossing illegally at one of the doors that we were at in Juarez, Mexico, just a few days ago. They told me there were some of the lucky ones that got processed and were released into El Paso with a court date. But now anyone who crosses illegally into the United States faces harsher consequences.
Uncertain about the future, migrants made a final push to cross into the U.S. before Title 42 came to an end at midnight on Thursday.
El nuevo decreto, pues, no sabemos cómo viene el nuevo decreto y ese era el temor, pues cruzar después del 11 de este mes. Pues.
Niker Lugoviania says he embarked on a treacherous journey from Venezuela and turned himself in at the border. 12 days later, he was released in El Paso with a notice to appear in court in 4 months.
27 de septiembre.
Aquí, a la 1 de la tarde.
Over the last few days, Department of Homeland Security officials say agents encountered an average of 10,000 migrants a day along the southwest border, nearly the 13,000 crossings officials projected with the end of Title 42. a pandemic-era policy used by the U.S. to expel migrants quickly and swiftly. The U.S. is now offering more legal pathways to seek asylum while also cracking down on illegal crossings. New immigration policies published include turning away anyone seeking asylum who did not seek protection in a country they crossed on their journey to the U.S. or who failed to apply online.
We believe that the measures that we have taken, including the rule that was published today, which puts some conditions on asylum eligibility for people who don't use lawful pathways, will over time reduce the numbers we're seeing at the border.
But critics say it may not be enough.
The only thing that's going to shut this crisis down is to detain people until they've had their day in court or keep them outside the country until they've had their day in court. You have to end catch and release.
While thousands of migrants attempt to navigate the sweeping immigration changes, cities in El Paso say they're prepared to provide shelter, meals, and transportation for migrants released by Border Patrol.
I could tell you from what happened last year, that's not going to be enough. So we need to really look at how do you fund local municipalities, because it's not sustainable.
As cities seek solutions, migrants released prepare for immigration court. A system backlogged with more than 2 million cases pending.
Migrants sleeping outside Sacred Heart Church woke up really early, some of them wanting to figure out the next steps for transportation to get to their destination, others trying to find a job, many of them cleaning up their areas quickly after waking up. City workers were here just about 10 minutes ago. They told us they didn't really have any cleanup to do because those migrants were out here sweeping and cleaning up after themselves. Veronica.
All right, Addie Guajardo reporting live from El Paso, Texas for us. Addie, thank you. And our thanks to Addie there, who's just one of a team of Scripps News correspondents stationed in communities across the southern border right now, many of whom have been working through the night to monitor conditions in the wake of Title 42's expiration. And we've been capturing what they have been seeing. Take a look.
I'm Javier Guerra in McAllen, Texas, in front of the border wall. As you can see, it is a much quieter situation than in Brownsville, Texas. Now, authorities here in McAllen still expect a surge in migrants. Hidalgo County Judge Richard Cortez declared a state of emergency in this county as the surge is expected to be massive in this area. But they are hoping that as the days go by, the surge will decrease. In McAllen, Texas, Javier Guerra.
The pandemic-era policy, Title 42, expired overnight. That allowed people here, CBP agents, to expel people from the border, sending them back to their home country or to Mexico. Now, here at the Deconcini Gate, as you can see, this is business as usual. People are going to school, going to work, and going through the CBP port of entry here. This is the only port of entry here in Nogales where people are able to be legally processed.
Virginia Cha at the U.S.-Mexico border in San Isidro. Even though Title 42 has ended, nothing has really changed for the migrants on the other side of this fence. They are still camped out, as you can see. They tell us that Border Patrol agents have been coming through every few hours to deliver water, granola bars, even taking some of the folks here with them, but that there has been no explanation as to what happens next. And that is leading to frustration as the wait continues. I'm Virginia Cha, Scripps News, San Diego.
A big thanks to all of our Scripps News correspondents who've been working this story for us. Our coverage of the end of Title 42 will continue in your next hour of Scripps News Live. We're going to take a closer look at how cities far from the southern border, like New York and Chicago, have been making plans to absorb a major influx of migrants. We'll have that story for you straight ahead at 1 p.m. Eastern. In the meantime, much more to come in this hour of Scripps News Live. Embattled Congressman George Santos working out a deal to avoid prosecution in Brazil over bad checks. Also, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis signing a bill that will keep records of his official travel expenses out of the public's hands. But first, a deal on the debt ceiling is unlikely today because President Biden's meeting with congressional leaders has now been postponed. We're going to explain why next.
We're Carvana. We've created a brand new way for you to sell your car. Go to Carvana, answer a few questions, and our techno wizardry calculates your car's value and gives you a real offer in seconds. We'll come to you, pay you on the spot, then pick up your car. That's it. At Carvana.
Do you spend hours maintaining your gutters? Save that time with LeafGuard's maintenance-free system. Call 1-833-2-GUTTERS. Mesh filters sit on top of your gutters, building up debris and eventually clogging. Then they need to be cleaned too. Honestly, your home should have been built with LeafGuard gutters. LeafGuard's wraparound hood deflects debris and keeps water away from your home. The one-piece seamless system is strong, 20% thicker than average, and built to last. Plus, LeafGuard is guaranteed to never clog for as long as you own your home. Right now, get a complete LeafGuard system for only $99 down, $99 a month, and $99 installation. You'll also receive a $100 Visa gift card with a free gutter inspection and in-home estimate. Damage from clogged gutters can cost you thousands. Never worry about clogged gutters again. Don't wait, you've still got time. Call 1-833-2-GUTTERS today. That's 1-833-2-GUTTERS.
Attention firefighters, first responders, military base personnel, and airport workers. Listen closely to this important legal announcement. Have you been exposed to chemical-based firefighting foam? If so, you may be entitled to a substantial cash award without going to court. For decades, aqueous film-forming foam, or AFFF, has been used to extinguish liquid fuel fires. A scientific study has now shown that the chemicals used to make AFFF are highly toxic to humans and can cause a significant risk of developing several types of cancer, including kidney, pancreatic, thyroid, prostate, bladder, testicular, liver, or non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. If you or a loved one are a firefighter, first responder, airport worker, or member of the military that has used firefighting foam and has been diagnosed with cancer, please call the Negligence Network to file your claim today. There's no fee unless we win your case. Call the Negligence Network to see if you're eligible for substantial compensation. Call 1-800-300-4858. That's 1-800-300-4858.
Sure, you should teach him to ride a bike. Then use Greenlight and teach him how to invest in bikes. Teach him to be smart about money, and he'll go far.
Super far. Oh, hey, Mom.
Navigate the world of money together. Invest in your best investment. Greenlight.
Today is day 3,287 since Flint has had clean and safe water.
Does the city know where work has been done?
Scripps News investigates. Monday night at 8/7 Central, only on Scripps News. There's a better way to begin your mornings.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Morning Rush.
On the stories that will shape each day.
There's a new study that might make you feel a little bit better.
So you can get on with yours. Morning Rush. Weekday mornings starting at 7/6 Central. Only on Scripps News.
Well, a potentially catastrophic default is now just 3 weeks away, and there's still no deal on the debt ceiling. In fact, today's meeting between President Biden and congressional leaders to discuss a deal has now been postponed until next week. But sources are signaling that this could actually be a sign of progress and that negotiations are still ongoing between White House and congressional staffers. In the meantime, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has her own meeting scheduled for next week with top Wall Street bankers. She's going to be meeting with Bank Policy Institute board members to discuss the ongoing debt ceiling negotiations and potentially easing the banking sector's fears that this impasse could eventually end in a default. Let's get you right out to Capitol Hill, where Scripps News political correspondent Kevin Cirilli is standing by live for us. So, Kevin, House Republicans are taking the country right now into potentially dangerous, uncharted waters. What can you tell us? What is the latest?
No framework agreement has been made in terms of getting Republicans and Democrats to get together as it relates to raising the nation's $31.4 trillion debt ceiling. But take a listen to what Speaker McCarthy had to say about where the talks and the negotiation stands. Here he is.
The staff has met the last 2 days. We think it's productive for the staff to meet again. I have not seen from there a seriousness of the White House that they want a deal. It seems like they want a default more than they want a deal.
Now, all of this comes as Democrats are pressing for Republicans to break from their need to have budget cuts lumped to raising the debt ceiling before June 1st, which is when Secretary of Treasury Janet Yellen says the X date is. They're noting, for example, however, comes as the Bipartisan Policy Center this week has come out and said that perhaps it might not be precisely on June 1st when that X date is. It could be a couple of days after of that, or even even a couple of weeks after that. So there appears to be some growing scrutiny as to precisely when that moment will come when the U.S. defaults on its debt.
And why is that, Kevin? I'm going to imagine that there's been talk about extraordinary measures that the government can take, right? How do maybe tax revenue, how do taxes factor into this equation?
For as complicated as Wall Street makes this is actually really easy to understand. Here's how. The United States, when it collects tax money, that's in large part that's how they get it cash. And so in order to pay their bills, tax revenue is a huge a way for them to pay their bills, the money that's collected during tax season. So the way that you can track that is by tax receipts. So they're going to come out on May 15th next week with just how many tax receipts have been collected in the last couple of months. And that Wall Street is going to gauge that to say if there's a lot of receipts, that means a lot of people paid their taxes, which means the government would have more money for their extraordinary measures, Veronica, to pay their bills, to meet their debt obligations. If there's not a lot of receipts, that would be interpreted as an indicator that they don't have enough money in order to pay their bills, which means that X date, that June 1st X date, would be a little sooner than anticipated. It's really wonky, it's really in the weeds, but hey, people got to show their receipts, you know what I mean?
People got to pay their taxes, and it's amazing if you think about it, because all of this could boil down to taxes. Right? But in the meantime, Kevin, the political brinksmanship continues in Washington. So just to give folks some perspective here, you know, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, this has also happened under Republican administrations. For example, let's talk about the Trump administration. How many times was the debt ceiling raised under the Trump administration?
3 times. 3 times under the Trump administration, lawmakers came together to either extend the debt ceiling in terms of just the time period that the U.S. would be able to pay their bills, or to just lift it altogether. That's why, based upon my reporting, I can tell you there's been a lot of scrutiny, even from Republicans, from now former President Donald Trump's remarks in that CNN town hall when he said that the U.S. might default on its debt, and questioned just the severity of what a default would actually mean. In the past couple of days, that's received pushback from Republican senators like Senator John Cornyn of Texas, Senator Mitt Romney of Utah, Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, in addition to others. Here's John Thune, one of the top Republican senators in the Senate, also pressing back against that, who have said that the understanding amongst those Republicans in the Senate is that they understand they have to get to some type of an agreement to avert a default. So again, that's just another issue where there's divide from where Trump is with where the current Republicans are, at least in the Senate. A really final point here is when you peel back behind the curtain of who's advising the Trump 2024 campaign on issues relating to the economy, there's one glaring person missing. That's former Secretary of the Treasury, Steven Mnuchin. Steven Mnuchin comes from Goldman Sachs, for example, and was seen as someone who was, as it would relate to the debt ceiling, a more moderating force in the broader populist conservative movement advising Trump. He's gone. I can tell you that from my reporting. And so it was notable, and perhaps the first time we've seen the impacts of the new Trump 2024 advisors advising him and where he stands as it relates to something as pressing and as we are in the final sprint to this, the debt ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, it's something when you think about how he was just at that town hall the other night advising the GOP to default on the nation's debt, yet under his administration, the debt ceiling had been lifted 3 times without incident. So it's definitely something to think about there. Kevin's really live on Capitol Hill. Thank you so much for the perspective, Kevin. We appreciate it. So lawyers in the meantime for the former president wasted little time appealing Tuesday's verdict in E. Jean Carroll's defamation lawsuit, a jury ordering Trump to pay $5 million in damages after finding him liable for sexual battery and defamation. Thursday afternoon, Trump's lawyers gave notice they plan to appeal. In a CNN town hall Wednesday night, like we were just talking about, Trump insisted that Carroll made up the story and then called her a whack job. One of Carroll's lawyers say that she might sue again over that remark. In the meantime, New York Republican Congressman George Santos won't be prosecuted for forging 2 stolen checks in Brazil about 15 years ago. His lawyer worked out an undisclosed deal. The congressman faces bigger problems in the U.S. right now, and he pleaded not guilty Wednesday to accusations that he stole from his campaign and lied to Congress when he said he was a millionaire. He's also being charged with falsely claiming $24,000 in pandemic-era jobless benefits. In Florida, Governor Ron DeSantis is signing a bill that will keep his travel records secret. The new measure prohibits law enforcement agencies from sharing any records about the governor's security and travel, and it applies to past, present, and future trips. The bill also shields the travel information of people whose services are requested by the governor. Republicans say the measure was needed to prevent people from plotting attacks against DeSantis. Last week, DeSantis said the bill was not his idea. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, a federal judge rules a Virginia ban on selling handguns to people 21 and younger is unconstitutional. Also, the New York City man accused of choking a subway performer to death has now surrendered on a second-degree manslaughter charge. We'll have new information for you when Scripps News Live returns.
A better banking app is right at your fingertips. Download Dave and you can get up to $500 instantly with extra cash. No interest, no credit checks, no late fees. You can even earn more money with a side hustle or manage and spend your cash with the Dave debit card. There's no overdraft fees and no minimum balance. Ditch the big banks and get up to $500 instantly. Download the Dave app now or go to dave.com today.
Wouldn't it be great if every meal was perfect? Not just big family cookouts or cozy dinners for 2, but even those crazy busy everyday meals. With Omaha Steaks, you'll love every meal because we only deliver the best. The possibilities are endless, and perfection is always guaranteed. Visit omahasteaks.com/TV to order the perfect meal collection today for just $99.99 and get 8 burgers free.
At Rue La La, feel like $1 million without paying the price. Seize the deals on top names before they're gone. Get in to never miss out. Shop RueLaLa.com today.
Do you have a box of videotapes, film reels, or photos that are degrading? Legacy Box professionally converts them to DVDs, thumb drive, or the cloud. Legacy Box is simple and safe, with over 1 million satisfied customers. Visit legacybox.com.
Attention non-Hodgkin's lymphoma patients. The makers of the popular weed killer Roundup have set aside $4.5 billion for victims of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
If you or a loved one were diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma after using Roundup weed killer, call White Hart Legal right now.
You may be entitled to substantial compensation.
Find out in less than 2 minutes if you may qualify.
Call 1-800-527-9800. That's 1-800-527-9800.
Municipal bonds don't usually get the media coverage the stock market does. In fact, most people don't find them all that exciting. But if you're looking for the potential for consistent income that's federally tax-free, now is an excellent time to consider municipal bonds from Henyon & Walsh. If you have at least $10,000 to invest, call and talk with one of our bond specialists at 1-800-465-8465. We'll send you our exclusive bond guide, free, with details about how bonds can be an important part of your portfolio. Henyon & Walsh has specialized in fixed income and growth solutions for 30 years and offers high-quality municipal bonds from across the country. They provide the potential for regular income, are federally tax-free, and have historically low risk. Call today to request your free bond guide, 1-800-465-8465. That's 1-800-465-8465.
The man accused of putting a homeless man in a fatal chokehold on a New York subway train turned himself in this morning. Daniel Penny is being charged with second-degree manslaughter in the death of Jordan Neely, who was a Michael Jackson impersonator. Penny is a former Marine. Prosecutors announced charges against him yesterday, and those charges came 10 days after a witness recorded the deadly encounter that Neely, seen here, had a documented history of mental illness. Penny put him in a chokehold after Neely reportedly screamed and begged for money on a subway train. Now, Neely was pronounced dead at the hospital, and his death has prompted widespread protests in New York and fierce debate over the treatment of the mentally ill. Scripps News national correspondent Morris Sirianni takes us inside the latest developments.
Yeah, this comes on the heels of some pretty intense protests that we saw over the weekend on the subway. The 24-year-old surrendered to police in Lower Manhattan this morning, less than 24 hours after the DA there said he would pursue criminal charges against him. So let's show you some video now. This is Daniel Penny, again, turning himself in just after 8 o'clock this morning. He is set to appear in court today on a charge of second-degree manslaughter. If convicted, that's a charge that carries up to 15 years in prison. The charges were filed amid intense calls for accountability. These images show the May 1st incident the charges stem from. Witnesses say Neely was on the subway yelling and acting erratically, but he never attacked anyone that day. Bystander video shows Penny, the Marine veteran, putting Neely in a chokehold. Witnesses say the two men were like that for about 15 minutes as Neely tried to get out of that chokehold. Now, Penny's lawyers have said he never meant to harm Neely and could not have foreseen his untimely death, also adding he never intended for things to go that far. Meantime, attorneys for Neely's family say that Penny clearly believed he was entitled to take Jordan's life that day. Neely was homeless and a regular performer on the subway. He was known for his daily routines, the one that, like you see here, dressed as Michael Jackson. CNN reporting Neely had been on a Department of Homeless Services list of those with the most drastic needs. Penny's attorney really leaning on Neely's documented history of violent and erratic behavior. We spoke with attorney Doug Burns earlier on Morning Rush. He said the case will be judged on the level of force at that moment and the response.
It'll be somewhat relevant, the individual's background, in the context of establishing that he was a threat to people and that this individual stepped in to protect himself and others.
Now, Penny is set to be arraigned in Manhattan Criminal Court later today, where the judge will decide whether to set bail. Our Alex Miller will be picking the story up from there. Back to you.
All right, Maura, thank you so much for that. A federal judge in Virginia says 18 and 19-year-olds have the constitutional right to buy a gun from a licensed dealer. Yesterday, a district court judge sided with John Corey Frazier and several other plaintiffs. He was 20 years old when a dealer turned him away last year from buying a gun. Frazier filed a lawsuit challenging the Virginia law banning sales to 18 and 19-year-olds. And in yesterday's ruling, the judge said such laws violate the Second Amendment and go against other legal rights that start at the age of 18. Anyone 18 and over can already buy a gun from a seller. The suspect in a deadly shooting at a California church is now facing 98 federal charges, including hate crimes. Authorities accused the 69-year-old of carrying out the attack last May at the Geneva Presbyterian Church in Orange County. One person was killed, 5 others injured. Investigators say he chose his victims based on their nationality and religion. If convicted, he would face the death penalty or life in prison without the possibility of parole. And the state of New York now taking legal action against a gun accessory company. The lawsuit is in connection to last May's shooting at the Top supermarket in Buffalo that left 10 people dead. It accuses Mean Arms of deceptive business practices. The company sells a gun lock that is advertised to comply with the New York ban on magazines. The state bans magazines that holds more than 10 rounds of ammunition, but Mean Arms also offers instructions to remove the lock, which is what the Buffalo gunman did in order to carry out the attack. And the Buffalo community, in the meantime, is still reeling from the Tops supermarket shooting. Sunday will mark 1 year since those tragic murders. The attack brought into focus the dark side of humanity, but in the darkness, health leaders have come together to help those in need. Scripps News correspondent Amber Strong shows us now how they played a role in positive change and the work that still needs to be done.
In May of 2022, a gunman entered a grocery store in Buffalo, New York, taking the lives of 10 people. It was a tragedy that forever changed that community and brought the realities of racism and redlining front and center.
It's been 1 year since nurse Trinetta Alston held the hands of survivors of the Tops grocery store massacre. Today, she's still holding hands.
I'd still check in with them like 3 to 4 times a week. They call me. They still know they have 24/7 access to me.
In the immediate aftermath of that racist attack that took the lives of 10 black residents, the need for more black healthcare professionals like Austin, Dr. Kenyani Davis, and Dr. Lavan Ansari was evident, with residents hesitant to open up.
Some of them who originally said that they were fine have actually spoke out and said they're actually not fine. You know, anxieties are setting in for them right now with the anniversary coming up.
According to the Gun Violence Archive, since that shooting in Buffalo, there have been more than 650 mass shootings across the U.S.
From a healthcare perspective, professionals say it's a frustrating reality.
The city of Buffalo, and after 5/14, literally 1 month later was Uvalde? They hadn't even got out of their trauma yet. It truly is a public health concern, and any public health concern is a medical concern. And we still are not able to address this.
According to the Anti-Defamation League, in 2022, 21 of 25 domestic extremist-related murders were linked to white supremacists. Nearly half of those murders happened that day in Buffalo, with the shooter admitting to killing the victims because they were black, something especially traumatizing for residents and black first responders, who Ansari says were often forgotten after the tragedy.
The black police officers, the firemen, all of them are strongly impacted, but they're not getting the same help as the rest. So we got to make sure that we take care of them.
In March, New York Governor Kathy Hochul announced $2.5 million in state funding. This, plus millions more in federal dollars, will go to mental health leaders in order to operate the Buffalo United Resiliency Center, a place dedicated to meeting the physical and mental health needs of East Side residents and survivors.
We had George Floyd, we had COVID, 2 blizzards that killed us, and slaughtered and massacred in a supermarket. Think about the impact that has had on a community of color, all within 3 years.
The tragedy did something else, drawing attention to the deadly consequences of redlining, a Jim Crow-era method of systemically pushing black people into certain neighborhoods, making the East Side grocery store the perfect target since it was the only one in the area. Lots of promises have been made to improve the quality of life for residents, but the team here says systemic improvements like adding more stores takes time and real change.
God willing, in the next 5 years, Buffalo is in the national news as, one of the best places to live because of its diversity and its way of life.
Amber Strong, Scripps News.
All right, 31 minutes after the hour now. Let's keep speed on the biggest stories that we're tracking for you. So the ACLU is challenging President Biden, and his new restrictions on migration. The group filed a lawsuit arguing the rules violated U.S. and international law. Biden's policy requires most people seeking asylum in the United States via Mexico and Central America to first apply for asylum in a country that they've traveled through to reach the southern border. And a debt limit meeting between President Biden and congressional leaders planned for today is now being pushed back to next week. They were set to, once again, discuss raising the nation's debt ceiling before a predicted June 1st deadline. Now, in the meantime, White House staffers and lawmakers have been working on negotiations for the federal budget. Republicans are saying they won't agree to any action unless the White House agrees to some federal spending cuts. And lawyers for former President Trump wasted little time appealing Tuesday's verdict in E. Jean Carroll's defamation lawsuit. A jury ordered Trump to pay $5 million in damages after finding him liable for sexual battery and defamation. Trump has insisted that Carroll made up all the allegations against him. He called her, quote, a whack job. One of her lawyers says that she might sue again over those remarks. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, startling video showing how bad the situation in Bakhmut has become for the Russian military as you see this soldier surrendering to a drone. Also, Moscow's steep losses in the city deepening the divide between President Vladimir Putin and the head of the army that he is paid to help his men fight. We'll be right back. Quick reminder right here, please follow us at Scripps News on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We'll be right back.
Are you on Medicaid and Medicare? The U.S. government recently announced that 12.2 million citizens are eligible for additional benefits beyond what they received from the original Medicare or Medicaid.
These benefits may include $2,500 of dental credit, $900 of pharmacy credit, plus you could be adding up to $164 back into your Social Security check every month. Certain beneficiaries qualify for specific benefits based on income verification.
It's easy to see if you qualify.
Call Go Medicare at 800-718-0414.
And see if you're one of over 12 million who may qualify.
For $2,500 of dental credit, $900 of pharmacy credit. Plus, you could be adding up to $164 back into your Social Security check every month. Certain beneficiaries qualify for specific benefits based on income verification.
This call is 100% free with no obligation to enroll.
At 800-718-0414. Are you on Medicaid and Medicare?
The U.S. government recently announced that 12.2 million citizens are eligible for additional benefits beyond what they received from the original Medicare or Medicaid.
These benefits may include $2,500 of dental credit, $900 of pharmacy credit. Plus, you could be adding up to $164 back into your Social Security check every month. Certain beneficiaries qualify for specific benefits based on income verification. Call Go Medicare at 800-718-0414. If you have recently turned 65, you may be able to enroll in a new plan today that may include benefits like $2,500 of dental credit, $900 of pharmacy credit.
This call is 100% free with no obligation to enroll. So call today.
At 800-718-0414. That's 800-718-0414.
How much money does your business qualify for? This business qualified for a $325,000 refund. This small business owner qualified for a $50,000 refund. If you had W-2 employees during the COVID-19 pandemic, you may be entitled to up to $26,000 per employee with the Employee Retention Tax Credit. The average business qualifies for a $247,000 refund, even if you got PPP. This approved payroll tax refund program from the U.S. Treasury Department is set up to reward business owners who kept employees on payroll during the pandemic. There is no upfront cost to see if your company is eligible and a no-fee guarantee. If you don't receive a refund, you pay nothing. This quick and easy call can get your business the money it deserves. The deadline to file your claim is limited. Don't wait. Call now.
Just call 800-314-2395. That's 800-314-2395.
When Lila was ready to sell her ring, she sent it to Worthy, where they took care of everything and auctioned it on her terms. Then, Worthy sent Lila her money. You're worthy of more. Get started at worthy.com.
This is The Upside,
where we shine a light on the brighter side of news.
With authority.
This is my purpose. Anybody can do it.
These are the stories of good people doing great things.
Weekday mornings at 5:30, 4:30 Central on Scripps News.
37 minutes after the hour now, we would like to hear from you. You can give us a call on our Scripps News viewer hotline, toll free. That number is 1-833-4-SCRIPPS. It's right there on your screen. You can share your comments and your story ideas with us at any time. Okay, so here's an example of how dire things have become for Russian troops in Bakhmut in eastern Ukraine. This is video, and it shows a Russian soldier who signaled to a Ukrainian drone that he wanted to surrender. Take a look. The drone then dropped a note telling him to follow it. And it appears that his fellow soldiers shot at him, but he did make it to the Ukrainian trench. Signs right now of a deepening rift between Moscow and the Wagner mercenary group. The man who runs Wagner has complained that a lack of supplies is one of the reasons that Russian troops have retreated more than a mile in the region. He also said Russian troops abandoned their positions without a fight. After a denial that Ukrainian forces advanced in the region, Russia's defense ministry amended that statement today, and it said that Russian troops moved into defense positions because they were more advantageous. So the nature of war often takes people out of their comfort zones. Correspondent Jason Bellini offers one example now of a musician who's helping the Ukrainian government deliver its narrative.
Major Ulana Suzanska meets us near the checkpoint on the road leading to the front lines. We traveled with her to report on an artillery unit in her brigade. Turned out she was new at this.
How long have you been a press officer?
1 week.
1 week?
Yeah.
But Suzanska's mission, her story that unfolded while on the road together, seems suddenly as emblematic of this war as the story we set out to report. Until just a few days ago, Suzanska served far from the front lines as the conductor for the Air Force band based in Vinnytsia in central Ukraine. Her unit played at military award ceremonies and parades. But then, in February, came the phone call every Ukrainian family dreads. Her only brother, Captain Alexander Sozansky, had died in battle.
How old was your brother?
31.
31. When was he killed?
The 70 February.
So really just a couple months ago.
Yeah, a month ago.
What happened to him?
It was mortar shelling, she says. It happened on the bloody, contested battlefield of Bakhmut. My brother was the commander of a unit that carried out combat missions at Zero Line, Suzanska says. The Zero Line, what the Ukrainian military calls the near face-to-face trench warfare of this battle.
He was a warrior. He's called Ragnar, the person from Scandinavia.
Viking?
Yeah, Viking.
Ragnar had shared with his family this video of his unit helping lead the charge in last fall's counteroffensive that forced the Russians to retreat from a vast swath of territory, including the one we're in now. For his valor, the Army awarded Sozansky the Cross of Bravery. Before he died, in an interview with an Army journalist, he offered this message for families of fallen soldiers. Of course, it's difficult to lose a husband, father, son, but these families should be proud of their heroes, he said.
How are you doing?
I don't know, actually. I don't know.
There's no time to be sad. We have to fight. We have no other way out. We have nowhere to run, she says. And fight she would, joining her fallen brother's brigade near the front lines. Not with the power of a gun, but the power of information, of world attention. The most important aspect of the war is the information war, Suzanska says. Those who own the information own the world. The world must see and know our nation is invincible, she says. Fathers, sons, wives, and daughters are fighting here, and we will stand until the last. On this day, Suzanska helped us to meet a father and son fighting together. Bodan, who's 25, fires artillery. His father, Yaroslav, 51, delivers the shells. When they signed up at the start of the invasion last year, they requested to be together.
You worry about your son?
We're of the same blood. Of course I worry, Yaroslav says.
Is it a good idea for a father and a son to be fighting together?
It's scary to think about, Bodan says. We don't think about that, says his father. We hope that the war will end and we will return home soon. Everyone understands that the worst can happen here, but we accept that. Such stories are what Suzanska wants to help the world to see. Ordinary Ukrainians making sacrifices, sometimes the ultimate one. Suzanska putting her passion on hold for now.
Music is my profession, it's my life, but
We'll have to wait until after our win, she says. Until then, she honors her brother. My brother's motto was, "A warrior lives as long as people remember him," Suzanska says. We must remember all our fallen heroes and fight on. Jason Bellini, Scripps News, Lyman, Ukraine.
And our thanks there to Jason Bellini, who's been reporting in Ukraine since the war began 15 months ago. This weekend, he's going to be sharing more of his harrowing stories from the front lines in a special episode of In Real Life.
When war came to Kyiv, everyone had to make a choice. Run, hide, or fight.
Girls, I'm going to the front line. Many men wanted to have this position. They wanted to be snipers. I'm on the front line and I'm pregnant. How can I be a sniper with a big belly?
Ukrainian Sniper on In Real Life. New episode Sunday night at 8/7 Central. Only on Scripps News.
Straight ahead on Scripps News Live, Hollywood stars joining the picket line in order to support striking writers. Also, could the jobs that those writers temporarily walked away from disappear as the industry moves to embrace AI?
AI threatens all aspects of the entertainment industry, from actors to directors to composers and more.
How artificial intelligence could change Hollywood as we know it. Next.
Do you spend hours maintaining your gutters? Save that time with LeafGuard's maintenance-free system. Call 1-833-2-GUTTERS. Mesh filters sit on top of your gutters, building up debris and eventually clogging. Then they need to be cleaned too. Honestly, your home should have been built with LeafGuard gutters. LeafGuard's wraparound hood deflects debris and keeps water away from your home. The one-piece seamless system is strong, 20% thicker than average, and built to last. Plus, LeafGuard is guaranteed to never clog for as long as you own your home. Right now, get a complete LeafGuard system for only $99 down, $99 a month, and $99 installation. You'll also receive a $100 Visa gift card with a free gutter inspection and in-home estimate. Damage from clogged gutters can cost you thousands. Never worry about clogged gutters again. Don't wait, you've still got time. Call 1-833-2-GUTTERS today. That's 1-833-2-GUTTERS.
Here's TV shark Robert Herjavec for CarShield.
I love cars, and I also love great deals. That's why I'm such a fan of CarShield. They have an amazing deal that helps protect you from the sky-high cost of big auto repairs.
The check engine light on your vehicle can come on at any time. If your car is out of warranty, an engine replacement can cost over $5,000. A new transmission, over $4,000. Even a new air conditioner can run over $1,500.
If you suddenly had to pay those costs, it could really hurt your bottom line.
CarShield administrators have paid for my claims over $5,000. Now, who does that? CarShield, you're the best. A plan that works.
When your car or truck breaks down, you simply take it to the certified repair shop or dealer of your choice. CarShield administrators take care of the rest.
And CarShield gives you VIP treatment.
Plans through CarShield include 24-hour roadside assistance, courtesy towing, and rental car options when your vehicle is being repaired.
I did my due diligence. CarShield is a deal that is just too good to pass up. In fact, CarShield is America's #1 auto protection company.
CarShield administrators have paid out over $1 billion in claims and have protected millions of vehicles. Call now for a free quote.
It's only a matter of time until your vehicle is going to need a repair. Save big with CarShield.
Call now for an instant free quote. CarShield offers month-to-month plans for every budget. There are no long-term contracts. CarShield has coverage for vehicles with 5,000 to 150,000 miles. CarShield experts are standing by now. The sooner you call, the sooner you can drive with peace of mind.
Coverage through CarShield is a deal that is just too good to pass up. If you want to save a lot of money on future auto repair bills, I recommend you call CarShield now.
Call 1-800-680-9870 or go to carshield.com. That's 1-800-680-9870. Call now.
So U.S. air travelers, they are not happy. According to the U.S. Public Interest Research Group, consumers filed more than 47,000 complaints last year, and that is more than any other year going back to at least 1990. Frontier Airlines had the largest number of complaints, followed by Spirit and then JetBlue. About 1/3 of those complaints were about cancellations or delays, and then second was refunds. Third, mishandled baggage, mishandled wheelchairs, even scooters. Christopher Muther is a travel writer and columnist for the Boston Globe. He joins us now live from a cruise ship. I think he's having a good time. He obviously is traveling, and it's not by air. But Christopher, let's go ahead and focus on air travel for a second. And I want to start with the 3 airlines that we were just talking about, JetBlue, Spirit, and Frontier. Why are they getting so many complaints? Is it because they're budget airlines? I mean, is the saying true? You get what you pay for?
Well, from what I think you're saying, getting some confused audio, I think you were asking if people get what they pay for to airlines. And, you know, I think what the issue has been isn't necessarily what people get what they pay for. It's kind of the current state of the airline industry. what's happening right now is that things came back so quickly from the pandemic that it's, people just don't have, airlines just don't have the bandwidth right now to handle the pre-pandemic numbers of people who have come back and really want to travel.
What factors are playing into all of this to make flying such a poor experience? You mentioned the pandemic, but I mean, I would imagine there are also staffing issues. Automation now also plays a factor. What do you think is going on exactly? Are there too many people wanting to fly?
I mean, that's essentially it. It's, what happened is, yes, there are too many people who have all that pent up travel energy because travel for basically 2 years. So now, now it's summer. Now people are feeling a little more solid in terms of the economy. They've saved up basically. And so, and also restrictions have been dropped for travel, as you know. So all of that has conspired to create basically what should be the summer of our travel discontent.
Yeah, I think that you have that right. The summer of our travel discontent. So taking all of that into account, how do folks gear up for travel? Do they just try to eliminate air travel altogether and do what you are doing, which is you're on a cruise ship? So maybe there are better ways to travel right now. How can people be prepared for, a bad experience when it comes to air travel?
I'm so sorry. I'm having such a hard time hearing you. I think it's a connection issue. I apologize.
Yeah, no, it's totally okay, Christopher. I know that you were on a cruise ship, probably somewhere in the middle of the ocean, enjoying the ocean blue. So have a great trip. Thank you so much. We're gonna have to try to do this again. But Christopher Muther is a travel writer and columnist with the Boston Globe. Christopher, have a good trip. Thank you. All right, in other news right now, Twitter is gonna have a new CEO. Probably soon. Late this morning, current CEO Elon Musk was tweeting that NBC Universal Advertising chief Linda Yaccarino has agreed to take the job. Now, Musk is saying that he's going to remain Twitter's executive chairman and chief technology officer. And when the billionaire bought Twitter last November, he said that he didn't want to be the social media company's permanent CEO. In other entertainment news, the entertainment industry is feeling the punch from striking writers right now. They've been on the picket lines outside of major studios for the past 10 days, demanding higher wages. And multiple stars are showing up to support, including Jeopardy's host, Mayim Bialik. Deadline is reporting Bialik won't be filming next week. Streaming platforms are at the center of the writers' issues. Writers have been pushing for a fair share of streaming residuals. Hulu's Abbott Elementary star Lisa Ann Walter is saying that writers deserve to make enough to live comfortably.
We're just hoping to get back to work, truly hoping to get back to work, but in a way that everybody can afford to earn a living and live in Los Angeles or New York, these expensive cities where we do this great job.
The strike has also pushed Netflix to cancel a major New York showcase for advertisers next week. As of now, contract talks between writers and studios are at a standstill. And money isn't the only issue concerning writers. Artificial intelligence has the potential now to take their jobs, and its rising popularity is putting the entertainment industry on edge.
But it's also important to note that while writers are taking the lead, AI threatens all aspects of the entertainment industry, from actors to directors to composers and more. We can look at the convincing success of deep fake videos to see how easily and frighteningly the human can be removed from the center of our own creative production.
Scripps News correspondent Stephen Graddick has more on AI's potential impact in Hollywood and how the industry is planning on addressing it.
Mississippi. That's Bruce Willis in a Russian cell phone commercial. Except it isn't.
فضة ترحب بكم.
And that's Fida, a presenter with Kuwait News and Kuwait Times. And like Bruce Willis in that cell phone commercial, Fida isn't real. Both figures were created through artificial intelligence, and proponents of the technology say it can help actors be in multiple places at once or cut down on labor costs for media companies and studios. For workers and artists, however, that isn't something to celebrate.
We are more than ever before being confronted with the reality of having to think about what protections need to be created either through legislation or by court-made law to allow people to feel safe in putting their image out there on these platforms, knowing that it's possible that they could then be grabbed and used by others.
AI, with its ability to recreate voices based on work of professional voice actors, is already worrying those whose lives center around voicing audiobooks, animated series, games, and commercials. Earlier this year, an investigation from Scripps News series Next Level found that AI companies were also taking the work of real artists to build their data sets to generate work in the artist's styles. That's worrying for people who create storyboards and concept art for video games, films, and television series.
We're seeing a huge displacement of newer artists or entry-level artists being displaced because a lot of small companies are more than willing to jump on these programs.
All creative industries are probably gonna hit this issue in one way or another.
Entertainment labor organizations like the Writers Guild of America and Screen Actors Guild are advocating for legal protections for their members, including those that would stop AI developers from exploiting creative work without permission or compensation.
With all the new technology, you can bring Marilyn Monroe back from the grave, or Gary Cooper, or Judy Garland, but of course it's not them. It's a synthetic version of them, and a synthetic version of writing or acting is never going to be alive or unexpected.
Negotiators for the Alliance of Motion Pictures and Television Producers said the best stories come from the human experience, but also signaled its interest in using the technology, saying in a recent statement, AI raises hard, important creative and legal questions for everyone.
This is why SAG is so involved in this, because they can foresee a future where some of their members are at a loss or have not been able to commercially monetize their image and likeness because they gave that away earlier on in their career, and nobody wants that to happen.
This isn't to say that all artists are anti-AI, but simply concerned about the ways it can be used against them without legal and ethical boundaries.
We're not anti-tech. This is not about humans versus robots. This is about doing it ethically.
There are people who are really legitimately worried that they're going to be AI'd out of a career or AI'd out of a job or something like that, right? But what really is the possibility here is the way that we can use these tools in order to increase our productivity, in order to give us more time for creation.
AI educators like Molly Mahoney note that AI can be a valuable tool that can be used by writers and artists, but not as a replacement for them. Stephen Graddick, Scripps News.
Much more coverage to come in your next hour of Scripps News Live. Our coverage of the end of Title 42 will continue. We're going to take a closer look at how cities far from the southern border, like New York and Chicago, have been making plans to absorb a major influx of migrants. I'm Veronica De La Cruz, and we are back after this.
We're Carvana, the company who invented car vending machines and buying a car 100% online. Now we've created a brand new way for you to sell your car. Whether it's a year old or a few years old, we want to buy your car. So go to Carvana, enter your license plate, answer a few questions, and our techno wizardry calculates your car's value and gives you a real offer in seconds. When you're ready, we'll come to you, pay you on the spot, and pick up your car. That's it. So ditch the old way of selling your car and say hello to the new way at Carvana.
At Rue La La, feel like $1 million without paying the price. Seize the deals on top names before they're gone. Get in to never miss out. Shop RueLaLa.com today.
Municipal bonds don't usually get the media coverage the stock market does. In fact, most people don't find them all that exciting. But if you're looking for the potential for consistent income that's federally tax-free, now is an excellent time to consider municipal bonds from Henyon & Walsh. If you have at least $10,000 to invest, call and talk with one of our bond specialists at 1-800-465-8465. We'll send you our exclusive bond guide, free, with details about how bonds can be an important part of your portfolio. Henyon & Walsh has specialized in fixed income and growth solutions for 30 years and offers high-quality municipal bonds from across the country. They provide the potential for regular income, are federally tax-free, and have historically low risk. Call today to request your free bond guide. 1-800-465-8465. That's 1-800-465-8465.
A better banking app is right at your fingertips. Join millions of people downloading Dave, and you can get up to $500 instantly with extra cash. A lot of members get $160 or more. It's free, no interest, no credit checks, no late fees. Pay a small fee only if you want the cash right now. And leave a tip if you want to say thanks. Get up to $500 instantly. Download the Dave app now or go to dave.com today.
This is a paid advertisement for legal services. This is an important message for any woman who has ever had ovarian cancer. If you've used talcum or baby powder, you may be entitled to an $8.9 billion settlement. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with ovarian cancer and have used a talcum-based powder, a special hotline has been established to see if you qualify. Call now for a free case evaluation. Just call 800-421-0451. A large manufacturer was recently court-ordered to pay $8.9 billion to women diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Studies have shown that women who have long-term use of talcum products such as baby powder may have an increased risk of contracting ovarian cancer. The company knew the risk and knowingly targeted women and their babies. Call now to find out if you or loved ones qualify for significant compensation. You pay $0 unless you win. The consultation is free and there is no risk to you. Don't wait. Just call 800-421-0451 now. That's 800-421-0451.
When war came to Kyiv, everyone had to make a choice.
Girls, I'm going to the front line.
Ukrainian Sniper on In Real Life. New episode Sunday night at 8/7 Central. Only on Scripps News.
Hey there, thank you so much for staying with us. It is now 1 p.m. in the East, 10 a.m. out West. I'm Veronica De La Cruz, TGIF. Happy Friday. Congratulations, you made it. Welcome back to Scripps News Live. Well, we begin this hour with some developing news coming out of New York, where the Marine accused of putting a homeless man in a fatal chokehold on a New York subway train turned himself in this morning. 24-year-old Daniel Penny, who you see here, is a former Marine. He's being charged with second-degree manslaughter in Jordan Neely's death. National correspondent Alex Miller is live for us right now in New York City. And Alex, the mayor has called this a tragedy that should never have taken place. What can you tell us about the suspect and what happens next?
Well, Veronica, we don't know a whole lot about him, just that he is a 24-year-old Marine. He turned himself in earlier today with what he called dignity and integrity. He says that he acted in self-defense, putting Neely in that chokehold because he was worried about his safety and the safety of others. Now, reportedly, Neely was acting erratically on that subway car. That report has been corroborated by at least some witnesses. Listen to what one of them had to say.
Start to yelling violence language. I don't care if I die. I don't care if I go into jail. I don't have any food.
Now, Penny just got out of court. He was released on $100,000 bail. He's going to have to turn in his passport, not be able to leave the state. He was originally taken into custody when this incident happened, but after questioning by police, he was released without charges. It was only after protests throughout the city, including on the subway platform where this happened, that the DA's office looked back into this. Look, Veronica, this entire incident has brought to light many concerns here in New York City, including subway safety, mental health issues, homelessness. Neely had reportedly been dealing with homelessness and mental health issues over the last few years. He had had multiple run-ins with the law, including an assault of a 67-year-old woman on a subway car back in 2021. Of course, it's likely that nobody on that car in the Neely situation knew that that had been his criminal history. But as far as this charge, second-degree manslaughter, goes with Daniel Penny, I want to just look at what exactly that outlines, what the jury is going to have to decide. They say that they will have to decide that this person, Neely, has engaged, or Penny rather, has engaged in reckless conduct that creates an unjustifiable risk of death and then consciously disregards that risk. They're also going to have to show that Penny had a gross deviation from how a reasonable person would act act in this situation. He faces a maximum of up to 15 years in prison. His next court date, Veronica, is not until July 17th.
All right, Alex Miller reporting from New York City with the very latest on that. Alex, thank you so much. Well, a federal judge in Virginia is saying 18-year-olds have the constitutional right to buy a gun from a licensed dealer. A district court judge sided with John Corey Frazier and several other plaintiffs. Frazier was 20 years old when a dealer last year refused to sell him a gun. He filed a lawsuit challenging the Virginia law banning sales to those under the age of 21. And in the ruling, the judge said such laws violate the Second Amendment and go against other legal rights that begin at the age of 18. Anyone 18 and over can already buy a gun from a seller. The suspect in a deadly shooting at a California church is now facing 98 federal charges, including hate crimes. The 69-year-old suspect is being accused of carrying out the attack last May at the Geneva Presbyterian Church in Orange County, California. One person was killed, 5 others injured. Investigators say he targeted his victims based on nationality and religion. Now, if convicted, he is facing the death penalty or life in prison without the possibility of parole. And the state of New York now taking legal action against a gun accessory company. The lawsuit is in connection to last May's shooting at the Tops supermarket in Buffalo that left 10 people dead. It is accusing the company Mean Arms of deceptive business practices. The company sells a gun lock that is advertised to comply with a New York ban on magazines. The state bans magazines that hold more than 10 rounds of ammunition. Mean Arms is also offering instructions to remove the lock, which is what the Buffalo gunman did in order to carry out the attack. In Washington, a meeting between President Biden and congressional leaders planned for today to discuss the debt ceiling will now be moved to next week. The group met for the first time on Tuesday. Republican lawmakers have warned there will be no deal without the White House agreeing to some degree of federal spending cuts. The White House reportedly says the administration acknowledges it will have to go along with those cuts. Though publicly, the president has insisted they shouldn't be linked to the debt ceiling. Financial experts are saying that the U.S. defaulting on its debt obligations would cause all sorts of problems, and they predict chaos for people who rely on Social Security, Medicare, and veterans benefits. They also say a default would send the stock market into turmoil, and that is just the beginning.
We default, interest rates would rise precipitously, starting with the risk-free rates of the United States Treasury, and everything beyond that would all go up. So the cost of debt would go up, which means it would cause the economy to lock up significantly.
Brewer says the U.S. dollar would lose its value and then the unemployment rate could rise. People across the country right now say there is a lack of affordable housing, and one solution that a number of states and counties have been considering would be to change the zoning laws to build more duplexes and triplexes where only single homes have been allowed. National correspondent Maya Rodriguez explains why there's opposition to this idea.
Communities around the country are grappling with America's affordable housing crisis. And in many places, they're starting with, at times, controversial changes to zoning. It's a scene typical of neighborhoods found across the country. Single-family homes lining leafy streets. But in areas where the demand for housing is high and the stock is low, streets like these could soon take on a different look.
The fact of the matter is, housing truly is the #1 economic issue in the United States.
Charles McCullough is with the Alliance for Housing Solutions, one of several groups that pushed for zoning changes here in Arlington, Virginia, just outside Washington, D.C. Zoning changes passed unanimously by the county that, where only single-family homes could once be built, will now allow for the construction of what's known as missing middle housing.
All those houses in between, duplexes, quads, sixplexes, eightplexes, and townhomes. And it opens up so many great opportunities for our community, more than just allowing communities to be more diverse because we have increased affordability.
But there's opposition.
It will not impact diversity in terms of racial, ethnic, or socioeconomic.
And why do you think it won't?
Well, it costs $193,000 for the cheapest missing middle unit, which is a sixplex. And if you see what we have outlined is the median income for an African-American household in Arlington is $66,000. So it's well below what's going to be needed for even the cheapest unit.
Ann Bodine is with Arlingtonians for Our Sustainable Future, which oppose the new zoning rules because they say the county's infrastructure isn't ready for it.
As we see it, there's multiple problems.
She points to other ways to address affordable housing.
They haven't done things like rent control or added more vouchers for rentals. And this is happening across the country. It's not just in Arlington. It's the push to grow.
A number of states and counties are looking into changing zoning laws to allow more missing middle housing. Some succeeded, others did not. Last month, the legislature in Washington state passed a missing middle housing bill for cities with more than 75,000 people, following in the steps of states like Oregon, Maine, and Massachusetts. But in Colorado, North Carolina, Nebraska, and Maryland, similar proposals have failed.
The missing middle conversation is really framed by a larger set of issues.
Uva Brandis is a professor with Georgetown University's Urban and Regional Planning Program.
There's zoning, and then there's controversy. Really, in cities across the United States, we're getting over a period of time where we tended to separate communities, and so missing middle housing is a really important strategy that communities need to carefully consider.
Back in Virginia, a group of residents filed a lawsuit over Arlington's new missing middle zoning change. Those on both sides of the issue say people living elsewhere can learn from what's happening here.
And until you see something built you don't really understand or you don't pay attention and you just assume business as usual in your community will take care of your own interests. There's still a lot of bitterness.
This actually is going to be a win-win, not just for breaking down racial barriers, but for the environment, but for aging in place. I really hope that what we're doing in Arlington does serve as a pathway forward for other communities.
Just one of the complex pieces to the affordable housing puzzle. Maya Rodriguez, Scripps News, Arlington, Virginia.
Coming up next, Title 42 has now come to an end, and you're taking a live look right here at El Paso, Texas. Straight ahead, how the White House is handling the situation at the border and the details on the political fallout. Also, migrants searching for a brighter future are being met right now with uncertainty at the border. We're going to share one family's journey and how nonprofits have been stepping in to help. We'll have that for you next as well. Also, don't forget right here that you can count on Scripps News for all of your headlines throughout the primetime hours, beginning at 6 p.m. Eastern with our Del Walters. We'll be right back.
There's a lot to watch on TV these days. Problem is, most streaming options are incredibly pricey, and you'll end up paying for the local channels you can get for free. Luckily, there's a solution. Sling is only $40 a month. And you get awesome stuff like sports, news, and today's hottest TV for half of what the other guys cost. If you already get free locals with an antenna, now you can easily add the channels you're missing with Sling. It's the TV you love for a price you'll love. Visit sling.com/antenna to learn more.
Hi, I'm Kirk Kaiser, and did you know the average funeral costs around $10,000? And if you don't have enough insurance to cover funeral costs, credit card debt, and other expenses, your family is going to get stuck with the bill. Don't let that happen. Call right now. And if you're over 50, you can get up to $30,000 in affordable life insurance, and your acceptance is guaranteed. That's right. If you're over 50, you can't be turned down for this insurance, regardless of your health. Plus, there's no medical exam and no health questions. Your rate will never go up. Your coverage will never go down. And rates start as low as $5 a week. Your coverage begins as soon as your application is received. Don't wait until it's too late.
Just call 800-379-8435.
Coverage is guaranteed regardless of your health and cannot be canceled without your approval. Don't leave your family with a huge bill for your funeral. With one fast and easy call, get up to $30,000 in affordable life insurance to help cover funeral expenses and credit card debt, and maybe even leave something for your kids and your grandkids. Remember, if you're over 50, you can't be turned down, regardless of your health. There's no medical exam and no health questions. Best of all, your rates start as low as $5 a week, and your rate will never increase. Nothing is more important than family. So don't leave them with a lot of bills to pay when you're gone. Don't leave your family with a lot of bills to pay for your funeral. Call right now. Acceptance is guaranteed. Call right now.
Call now. 800-379-8435. That's 800-379-8435.
My little family is me, Aria, and Jade. Just the three of us girls. Here, this way. I never thought twice about feeding her kibble, but about 2 years ago, I realized she was overweight. She was always out of breath. That's when I decided to introduce the farmer's dog to her diet. It's just so fresh that she literally gets bubbles in her mouth. Now she's a lot more active. She's able to join us on our adventures, and we're all able to do things as a family.
Get started at betterforthem.com.
14 minutes after the hour now, we are staying on top of the latest developments along the southern border now that Title 42 has come to an end, beginning with the rush of legal action. Overnight, the ACLU filing a lawsuit to block the Biden administration's new restrictions on migration, arguing that they violate U.S. and international law. The new policies require most asylum seekers traveling through Mexico and Central America to first apply for asylum in a country that they are traveling through before they reach the southern border. And immigration and the southern border long been a lightning rod in U.S. politics for many years, but a new chapter began today. The end of the public health policy known as Title 42, which allowed incoming migrants to be turned away without a hearing, changed the process at the border, and it also brought concern that more people are now going to try to cross. Congressional correspondent Stephanie Lieberman at the White House right now. And Stephanie, the administration has been working to prepare for today. What more can you tell us, especially about the political fallout that we're seeing now?
Hey, Veronica, good afternoon. Well, the White House has admitted this week that the situation at the border could be potentially a little chaotic or hectic with the end of Title 42, but administration officials have repeatedly insisted that the Biden administration was ready for this, and they've been planning for this day for up to 2 years. Now, overnight, Biden officials say that there was no drastic increase in the number of migrants presenting themselves at the border, and what they saw on the border overnight and early today has been on par with what the administration has seen over the last few days. Now, an important difference in the end of Title 42. Title 42, if a migrant was expelled from the country, they were allowed to come back over and over and over again without any consequences. Now that Title 42 is gone and the administration is relying on Title 8, being expelled and then coming back to the United States comes with some serious consequences. And that's something that Secretary Mayorkas stressed in his statement that went out at midnight tonight, the moment that Title 42 ended. In his statement, he said in part, quote, "People who do not use available lawful pathways to enter the U.S. now face tougher consequences, including a minimum 5-year ban on reentry and potential criminal prosecution. Together with our partners throughout the federal government and Western Hemisphere, we are prepared for this transition." So as well as moving to Title 8 instead of Title 42, there's that new asylum rule that you mentioned that has gone into effect today. But people seeking asylum need to have an appointment with the CBP One app before they get to the border, and they need to cross at a port of entry. Now, there is the lawsuit that you mentioned versus with the ACLU fighting that new asylum rule. That's not the only lawsuit that the administration is dealing with as well. There was also a lawsuit filed by Florida officials against the new parole process. So that would be the process that the administration would be using to release some select migrants into the United States after going through a vetting process, as long as those people have a future appointment to come back and deal with Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Now, a court order overnight put that new ruling on hold for the next 14 days, giving the administration, of course, time to appeal to a higher court, with administration officials saying these two lawsuits from opposite sides of the political spectrum are really hampering and making it more complicated for them to deal with these changes from the end of Title 42 and switching to Title 8. But the White House, really saying that these lawsuits coming, again, from opposite sides of the spectrum really emphasize the need for bipartisan immigration reform, and that's really the only way to fix this issue we've had at the border really for decades, Veronica.
Yeah, I know. During that press conference yesterday, Alejandro Mayorkas was saying that the system is broken. The immigration system is broken. It needs to be reformed. Stephanie Lieberman live for us at the White House. Stephanie, thank you. So Yuma, Arizona is a border city that is bracing for a surge of migrants today. Nick Saletti with Scripps News Phoenix has been speaking with 2 migrant families about their experience.
One by one, they load these buses, bound for Phoenix, catching flights at Sky Harbor to stay with family in other cities. They may be headed for different places, but they're all facing the same unfamiliar, uncertain future as they begin their quest for asylum. Just like Celso Diaz and his wife Sylvia, who've come from Peru with 2 small children.
So he says his daughter's been asking, where are we going, Dad? Where are we going? He says we're going to a country that, even though it's not the same, we're going to be able to start over all again.
That fresh start is what's motivating many of these migrants. Celso says work is hard to come by in Peru, but there's another motivating factor for this family.
Por ejemplo, mi hijo necesita terapias y un poquito son caras, terapias de lenguaje, para su autismo que tiene y no me alcanza.
He tells me his son has autism and he's unable to get the therapies, like the speech therapy, that his son needs.
It's a move the Diaz family was willing to make, coming here with just the clothes on their backs. But it doesn't mean the decision was easy.
Pero sí es bastante complicado. Todo es incierto, es una incertidumbre. Pero todo gracias a nuestro Dios de que todo es posible.
So Sylvia tells me that it was an incredibly difficult decision to be here. And it's very complicated, and it's been challenging at times.
How can we not extend our help or open our hearts to help those families in despair?
Amanda Aguirre is the founder and CEO of the Regional Center for Border Health here in Somerton, just outside Yuma.
Once you guys do hear your name, you're going to come up and sign your form.
What is normally a public health resource in this community has expanded, serving as a drop-off site for the Border Patrol.
So it is quite a lot of operation. Feeding, taking care of medical care needs, making sure that their flights are being booked. We don't have shelters in Yuma, so our goal is to get people to the final destination as soon as possible.
But each day this week, they're getting closer and closer to capacity.
How do you even begin to prepare for something like that?
Right now it's very challenging, and for me, every day is an emergency.
¿Cómo te llamas?
Samantha.
Back outside, we meet the Rodriguez family. Davis Rodriguez is here from Colombia with his 3 kids.
¿Cómo dejar es difícil? Porque tú no sabes qué te vas a encontrar en el otro lado.
He says it's been difficult because you don't know what you're going to find on the other side.
Davis says his family is escaping extreme violence. He begins to show me scars and wounds on his arm. He says a group in Colombia targeted him, smashing his windshield while he was still inside his car.
¿Tú piensas que ellos están tratando de matarte?
Claro, al hacer esto, pienso que sí, que no están jugando, van en serio.
So I asked him if he feels like this group is trying to kill him, and he said yes, definitely. They're not playing around. If they did this to him, there's no telling what could happen next.
He's about to board a bus to Phoenix, where he'll take a flight to Salt Lake City to stay with family as he waits to find out if a judge will grant his asylum request. He knows it's a difficult road ahead, but he refuses to give up hope. I'm Nick Saletti for Scripps News.
So immigration issues aren't just happening along the border right now. In New York City, Mayor Eric Adams made a dramatic move ahead of the expiration of Title 42 last night. The city temporarily suspended some of the rules related to its long-standing guarantee of shelter to asylum seekers. Let's bring in Scripps News national correspondent Axel Tercios, who's live for us in New York City to explain this. So Axel, what are these measures that the mayor has put into place? How will it be affecting the migrants that come to the city?
Well, Veronica, Mayor Eric Adams signed an executive order that is suspending parts of the city's right to shelter law. One of the parts of that law that is being suspended is the one that the city must provide private rooms to families with children. Advocates saying that this is going to open the door for families to be placed in congregate areas, placing children at risk.
This was a difficult decision for me.
Concerns over an influx of asylum seekers in New York City as Title 42 ends.
Do you know last week we got 4,200 people? We get an average of 500 people a day.
Mayor Eric Adams signing an executive order suspending portions of the city's right to shelter law.
We could potentially get thousands of people a day in our city. It's wrong for those who are coming here, and it's wrong for New Yorkers who are here.
The city lifting rules that set a nightly deadline for the placement of newly arrived families in shelters. And the rule that states families must be housed in private rooms with bathrooms and kitchens and not in communal spaces.
That's just not realistic when you're getting 4,200 people in your city that you're going to find a place with kitchen and a bathroom. Our desire is not to put children and families in dormitory settings. Our desire is to manage a humanitarian crisis.
Advocates saying the measures place children at risk of violence and sexual abuse.
We have been very clear to New York City that families must be in proper accommodations as well as receiving proper shelter.
Venezuelan Mauro Izaguirre has been staying in a city-paid hotel room with his wife and 2 children for 5 months.
Agradecido más bien porque tenemos el techo donde dormir, nos ayudan mucho la comida.
¿Ustedes tienen alguna preocupación de que la ayuda se les detenga debido a que más personas van a continuar llegando?
No, la verdad no. La verdad no, porque ya corresponde de uno también buscar un trabajo. Ya tenemos, así como nosotros tuvimos esta ayuda, y hay otras personas que también la merecen.
Mayor Adams looking for new options to alleviate the stress on an already stretched shelter system, sending some migrants to neighboring counties.
We must be clear on what we're doing because some people try to compare it to what Abbott did. We're paying for it. We're only taking volunteers. We are communicating with the officials up there on what we're doing.
The move leading to a war of words between the mayor and county officials.
I would think if the mayor is going to come up with a ridiculous plan like this, which is not viable and not workable, he should have picked up a phone and contacted us and truly coordinate this.
County Exec Day, this guy has a record of being anti-Semitic, his racist comments, his thoughts and how he responded to this. Really, it shows the lack of leadership.
Both Orange and Rockland counties declaring states of emergency.
It's a slap in the face to the thriving immigrant communities in their counties.
Veronica, in a defiant move, Mayor Eric Adams sent 2 buses with about 40 migrants to Orange County Thursday. As for the executive order, he signed it late Wednesday, and it took effect immediately, and it stays in effect for 5 days. But Adams can modify it, meaning he can renew it. Veronica.
All right, Axel Tercios reporting live from New York City. Axel, thank you so much. Coming up next on Scripps News Live, see how an Idaho community has been honoring the lives and legacies of 4 murdered college students. Also, pregnant women fighting to stay alive during labor and delivery.
I'm alive because I have family who knew better.
3 women share their emotional birth experiences and why they are encouraging Black expecting mothers to take their health into their own hands. That's next.
Do you spend hours maintaining your gutters? Save that time with LeafGuard's maintenance-free system. Call 1-833-2-GUTTERS. Mesh filters sit on top of your gutters, building up debris and eventually clogging. Then they need to be cleaned too. Honestly, your home should have been built with LeafGuard gutters. LeafGuard's wraparound hood deflects debris and keeps water away from your home. The one-piece seamless system is strong, 20% thicker than average, and built to last. Plus, LeafGuard is guaranteed to never clog for as long as you own your home. Right now, get a complete LeafGuard system for only $99 down, $99 a month, and $99 installation. You'll also receive a $100 Visa gift card with a free gutter inspection and in-home estimate. Damage from clogged gutters can cost you thousands. Never worry about clogged gutters again. Don't wait, you've still got time. Call 1-833-2-GUTTERS today. That's 1-833-2-GUTTERS.
This is a paid advertisement for legal services. This is an important message for any woman who has ever had ovarian cancer. If you've used talcum or baby powder, you may be entitled to an $8.9 billion settlement. If you or a loved one have been diagnosed with ovarian cancer and have used a talcum-based powder, a special hotline has been established to see if you qualify. Call now for a free case evaluation. Just call 800-421-0451. A large manufacturer was recently court-ordered to pay $8.9 billion to women diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Studies have shown that women who have long-term use of talcum products such as baby powder may have an increased risk of contracting ovarian cancer. The company knew the risk and knowingly targeted women and their babies. Call now to find out if you or loved ones qualify for significant compensation. You pay $0 unless you win. The consultation is free and there is no risk to you. Don't wait. Just call 800-421-0451 now. That's 800-421-0451.
When Lila was ready to sell her ring, she sent it to Worthy, where they took care of everything and auctioned it on her terms. Then, Worthy sent Lila her money. Get what you're worth at Worthy.com.
Do you have a box of videotapes, film reels, or photos that are degrading? Legacy Box professionally converts them to DVDs, thumb drive, or the cloud. Legacy Box is simple and safe, with over 1 million satisfied customers. Visit legacybox.com.
Digging deeper into the headlines.
We have some big stories to get to tonight.
Shedding light on groundbreaking investigations and ending your night with something new.
Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Christian Bryant.
Scripps News Tonight, live tonight, starting at 8/7 Central.
I'm Jason Bellini in Ukraine, reporting for Scripps News.
In a war half a world away,
You learn pretty fast when you just survive.
there are stories you will never forget. Stay with Scripps News.
Hey there, welcome back to Scripps News Live. It is now 1:30 the hour. I'm Veronica De La Cruz. Thank you so much for being with us on this Friday. Let's take a look at your top headlines right now. A debt limit meeting between President Biden and congressional leaders planned for today has now been canceled. It's been pushed to next week. They were set to once again discuss raising the nation's debt ceiling before that predicted June 1st deadline. Now, in the meantime, White House staffers and lawmakers are working on negotiations for the federal budget. Republicans say they won't agree to any action unless the White House agrees to some federal spending cuts. New York Republican Congressman George Santos won't be prosecuted for forging 2 stolen checks in Brazil 15 years ago. His lawyer worked out an undisclosed deal. Santos is facing bigger problems in the U.S. right now. He's pleaded not guilty Wednesday to accusations that he stole from his campaign and lied to Congress when he said that he was a millionaire. He's also being charged with falsely claiming $24,000 in pandemic-era jobless benefits. Lawyers for former President Trump wasted little time appealing Tuesday's verdict in E. Jean Carroll's defamation lawsuit. A jury ordered Trump to pay $5 million in damages after finding him liable for sexual battery and defamation. Trump insisted that Carroll has made up all the allegations against him. He calls her a, quote, whack job. One of her lawyers says that she might sue again over those remarks. It has been nearly 6 months now since the brutal murders of 4 University of Idaho students. The suspected killer is in jail and he is expected to return to court next month, but that's brought little closure to the community. Scripps News correspondent Alex Miller shows us how the college town has been coping with the tragedy.